Okay, everyone, let's get started. Today, we're going to have an open house for the 2025-2026 analyst training. And we're just going to start by briefly looking at the three pillars of New School of Human Design, because they really inform the way that we approach the analyst training. In fact, they really grew out of the analyst training. So the three pillars are differentiated education, number one, number two, somatic deconditioning support, and three, clarified source material. So again, these pillars really organically emerged out of the past 3 years of teaching the analyst training. So let's take a look at what each one means. So before we get started, I wanted to tell you a quick story about myself that really informs how I've always approached the teaching of human design. So when I was in elementary school, I was horribly insecure in English class. I was actually generally insecure with learning because the school system was far from accommodating my extremely specific mental process. And that comes from both my defined ajna and a number of elements in my substructure, which make my mind all that much more defined, right? So I have a very specific way of thinking. And it didn't allow me the time I needed as an emotional triple split to complete assignments. And I really shouldn't have been there anyway, as my design is actually meant to be homeschooled. I'm on the trajectory of separatist to communalist, right? These are children who, if they weren't given the opportunity to be homeschooled, they'll tell you as an adult that public school was very difficult and traumatizing for them. You know, add an undefined spleen to the mix, and I'm amplifying all the kids' fears. Now, I'm not blaming anyone. You know, how could they know? It's just incredible how far consciousness has evolved since I was in grade school. You know, it feels like the Stone Age now. It's almost gross to think back to how things were handled in many regards. So there I was in the 1980s, you know, armed with the Trapper Keeper and a mixtape and a lunch bag filled with the, you know, lab created food, wondering if there was something wrong with me. And yet it was confusing because adults would tell me I had this extraordinarily broad vocabulary, full sentences by age 3. I took to reading at an early age, had really great reading comprehension. And despite all that, I struggled in English class. Well, the problem wasn't with my reading or my communication. You'd think that would have me covered in English class, but no. The problem was grammar. Grammar completely tripped me up. And I remember I hated English class until 7th grade because that's when it shifted from a focus on grammar to a focus on reading and writing. And what do you want to say? So now that we didn't have to talk about these annoying rules all the time, English class suddenly got a lot more fun. And then all these teachers were calling my parents about my writing ability and how I was at the top of the class. I was embarrassed with the praises. I don't think I was even able to fully receive the compliments. And my parents knew I was articulate, but they were also surprised as I had previously struggled to get B's and C's in English class. So I sucked at remembering grammatical rules, and therefore I thought I wasn't good at writing. Since I wasn't meant to learn how to write by emphasizing grammar, I was graded poorly. The message I was getting was that good writing seemed to be dependent on understanding all these strange rules. And what a mistake that turned out to be for someone whose entire career has turned out to be built on writing and communication. Because I remember in 7th grade, I started to win awards, gain some confidence in my writing ability, start to heal a little bit of the wounds from the grammar-centric English class. Flash forward a few years, and I was a journalism major for a while in college before I transferred to philosophy. Also requires a lot of writing. Then I had a career as a copywriter and a creative director with a writing background. And now here I am explaining human design. My personality sun, gate 52, line 5, is called explanation. That's what I'm doing. So I found it inborn, and I didn't benefit from the external imposition of rules that just really interfered with what I was naturally doing. Right? Rules I didn't need, unnecessary guardrails, unnecessary restrictions. That was what almost completely sabotaged my purpose, my career, my true calling as a writer and a teacher and a communicator. Grammar was presented as a structure I was meant to follow that would somehow get me to the ability to articulate clearly, but I didn't need that. You know what I needed? I needed to listen to people who spoke clearly, who think clearly, to absorb their speaking style, to absorb their thinking style, and also, of course, read talented writers. And then by doing those things, I implicitly understood grammar. It came through in the experience. But to force me to focus directly on that about the rules, well, that was awkward. So this is my approach to teaching you human design, right? Imagine taking a natural athlete, they're hitting the ball far, scoring a record amount of points. Someone comes in and says, but are you even doing it right? That's not the way experts say you should do it, right? That's just going to put people in their head. It's going to break the natural flow. That's what happened to me. So I'm very sensitive to tripping you up with my biases. And I'm aware that some of you can just write. And instead of starting with rules, I'd rather give you cool subjects to start writing about. I'd rather you know the subject matter. Then let's gently guide how you naturally communicate. So this is why I'm passionate about differentiated education. And Teresa and I actually, just in the most recent podcast, which just got published today, we spoke about each of our respective challenges with the traditional school system. So we know how traumatizing school can be, right? Just the thought of a classroom setting can be triggering. But the analyst training isn't that, right? Because we're both sensitive to those issues. We want an educational container that's safe and supportive and that respects everyone's different learning styles and needs. So this is a no pressure container. Part of the learning is allowing yourself to find your own way and remain true to that process, your own learning style. And if you're unsure of what works best, right? If you're new to this, we're here to help you discover what might work for you and give you space to test it out. So what makes our education differentiated? Well, simply stated, we give right and left minds an organized focus and structure. And most of my students do have right minds. And they've said unanimously how much they really appreciate this approach because we give the right minds that structure that they need. But here's the difference. We don't ask right minds to hold that focus and replicate it on their own. You see, here's the thing. Left minds run the risk of losing the forest through the trees. They get caught up in isolated elements. They struggle to see the holistic picture. They can see that holistic picture eventually, conceptually, but they do that by connecting the dots one by one. It's like that game, Connect the Dots, where eventually a picture emerges. So left minds back into what that holistic picture is. That's the way they work. Right minds have the opposite orientation. They struggle to see the trees through the forest, right? They're always peripherally including more and more. Hence the need for a structured course that directs their attention, right, for sake of learning without asking them to perform in a focused and strategic way. We encourage people to learn in a way that works for them. So again, if you have a right brain, you thrive on nervous energy. So you might listen to the class as you do chores around the house, or go for a walk, or multitask in some way. If you have inner vision, you might look away from the screen. With that soft gaze, you drift off into your own mind's eye. If you have outer vision, you might be better served by looking at the presentation. So some of you will learn best from the live transmission. Others will learn best from the recordings. Some of you want to ask questions live, and some of you would prefer to ask them privately. And it's all welcome here. So beyond providing that logically organized structure for learning and essentially not forcing rightness to be leftness, We don't think it makes sense to train you to deliver a specific product, so to speak. As in, here's this thing called a foundation reading, and it should look and taste and feel like this, right? Another McDonald's hamburger. I don't like how legacy schools train you to follow a predetermined sequence, as if you're first supposed to notice this, and then you got to notice that, then you got to notice the next thing. It's preposterous. And to keynote in overly dense sentences that may be correct, but which are often too abstract for the client to even follow and absorb. And all that requires rote memorization. So it doesn't make sense in the science of differentiation to ask people to follow the same process, to mistakenly believe they can all see the same way and notice things in the same order. That betrays what I thought we were aspiring to do here. So we feel the most important thing to empower you as an analyst is to teach you about all of the major elements in the chart and make sure you understand those elements in the context of all the other elements. Right? How is this element similar or different to other elements? Think of lines and colors and tones. What's the common thread? Right? What are the differences? How does each operate? What areas of life do they pertain to? And where are the limits of that? So we want to fill your toolbox with a solid understanding of each element. That's why 2/3 of each semester is really understanding concepts. And the final third is, yes, learning how to keynote and work with those concepts. But the keynoting shouldn't be the majority of the program. Coming up with an artificial structure and sequence shouldn't be something that we're teaching. If you're completely lost and disoriented, we can give you a structure. But that's really not the thing. So what we're here to do is fill the right mind up with the correct understanding that can then be pulled out as needed in the course of an emergent dialogue with the clients. Right? Keynoting can then happen organically in that conversation. Right? Doesn't need preparation. It just emerges. If you've got it in there, right, in your toolbox, it'll show up when you need it. And the left-minded person can show up to that reading and perform more or less a monologue if they like. So this is what we mean by differentiated education. Now, the next pillar is somatic deconditioning support. And Teresa, I'm going to turn it over to you. Would you like to speak to that since this is really your area of the course?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a student in James's first cohort of the training, and it was amazing. But I did find that we needed a little bit more body-based awareness incorporated into the training. And James, this is something that James and I really connected on early on, just as we became close. And it's something that I really wanted to incorporate into the training once I came on board. So analyst training really stirs up deep layers of conditioning and old narratives and hidden patterns, especially in semester one, when we're kind of excavating the not self. And somatic support really provides this compassionate framework for exploring these layers without overwhelm and allows you to attune to your current capacity for deconditioning as well as consuming information. So you're going to be consuming a lot. And so you kind of have to have this awareness of how it feels in your body as you're consuming that information and where you've hit your capacity and where you need some time to integrate, as well as everything that it brings up in your deconditioning process. So this also helps to integrate learning beyond the mind. Human design is a very mental system, but it's really about the body. And that's something that James and I have known from the beginning, have been surprised that it hasn't been incorporated in other trainings. So you're able to help move these insights from intellectual understanding into your lived experience, making the analysis that you're giving to your clients more embodied and more accurate because it's coming from your personal body-based awareness. This also supports nervous system regulation. A regulated nervous system improves your perception, your own intuition, your presence in life, and also in your client sessions. And it also reduces bias in chart interpretation. You have to have awareness of your personal conditioning and your own triggers in order to be able to kind of cleanly come to a session with a client. And it keeps you from really projecting your own patterns onto clients. And I just feel like if we don't have that awareness when we're coming to sessions, we could be unknowingly projecting those patterns onto clients. So we have to be aware of our conditioning from our definition, but also our life experience and even our own trauma. And it also builds resilience for challenging readings. You know, there can be a lot that could come up in these readings, and being able to have some somatic tools to teach you to come back to your body if you're kind of getting overwhelmed as the analyst. It helps you stay grounded, but also sensitive to charged topics and sensitive to the client's needs as well. And so it deepens empathy and attunement. Being present in your own body increases your capacity to attune to the client's state and their needs. And this is really what I found. I've been studying somatics for and trauma for years now, but I've really started integrating it in my body over this last year. And the way that it's really shifted the way that I work with clients, the way that I show up as a teacher, and the way that I show up for myself in my everyday life and my deconditioning process. So in the training, the way that we are going to provide this somatic support, we'll have one session a week to support this, and it'll be guided embodiment practice, basic embodiment practices, and so that you can help anchor in these concepts into your real life experience and just bring the body into the conversation. So these simple, effective tools for noticing and regulating your nervous system, practices for recognizing and gently unwinding conditioning as we're moving through that, and also just a safe container to process what's coming up and to connect with other students during your personal deconditioning journey. And support for integrating these insights into your daily life so that these transformational awarenesses can actually be felt in your experience and not just mind candy, which has been my experience with a lot of human design trainings. It's just so much coming at the mind. And at the end of the day, you have to think, well, how does this actually feel? Is this information actually landing, or is my mind just chewing on this concept? So there's going to be constant invitations to be connecting these human design teachings to your body-based awareness.
Thanks, Teresa. Yeah, I think
That's what I got.
in addition to this supporting your own deconditioning, I love how you just ended that. It's also going to just help this stuff land, right? It's going to get it out of the mind and it's going to help it actually land in your being, right? And that makes all the difference in the world in how you're working with people, because then you're carrying the frequency of embodied understanding. I mean, you can hear that in someone's voice, right? You shouldn't take the analyst training if in my voice you're a little unsure if this guy is actually living this stuff, right? And the way that you carry that frequency is by taking it into your body. It's by experiencing it deeply. So the final pillar here is clarified source material. And really, this is about adding nuance, right? Offering my own experience and observations, toning down Ra's hyperbole, right? He's often so black and white, taking it a little bit more toward the gray area as appropriate. That's a lot of what I do, is tone down his hyperbole, or show where he's really finally landed on the subject, right? Because it's often his last word is the most accurate. He had this third line mind after all. So here are ways of understanding things you haven't heard before. And that's what people want, folks, right? They're tired of hearing the same simplistic platitudes that you can easily find in the books and social media. So first of all, most people who say them don't really know what they mean, right? It's different to say the things after you've personally lived them, digested them, right? That's a different story, right? Again, this is facilitated by the deconditioning process, the container that we're providing here. And it's also a matter of just patient observation of the mechanics. So I really believe that all misunderstandings in the field can be resolved with patient observation. It doesn't make sense to study an area of design that you're not ready to really devote time and attention to, right? That you're not ready to apply to your friends and family. Not that you have to tell them and bring them into it, right? But just to pull up their charts and learn about the concepts that way, to see how it fits your experience of them or not. That's how you make this your own. That's how you find your own words. That's how you start to live and breathe this knowledge. And that's what the clients on your fractal want, right? They want to hear it in your frequency. They want you to say things they haven't heard before, right? New insights from your own direct experience. So that's what you can expect in this training. Not contradictions to what Ross said, but nuance, more dimension, more examples, real life examples and analogies. Right? If you have questions about that, what that looks like, check out our podcast or check out the content on YouTube or Instagram. All right, you can see just about in any of those places what this looks like and how I communicate in a way that people say enriches their understanding. So that's what we wanted to share regarding our approach. Any questions about that? Any questions about how we're doing things? Yeah, Matt.
Just appreciation for funding for doing so and really
Matt, I'm
having
not
that
I'm not
opportunity.
hearing you. I'm not hearing you too well. You're breaking up a bit.
All right, third time's a charm.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry, guys. I've had tech issues all morning. It's been one of those mornings.
We
And
we
then
we we get you. We've just well, we're still in the shadow period of Mercury retrograde, so let's chalk it up to that.
it was meant to be. I was just saying I appreciate the approach of bringing in the somatics into integrating everything. I've been doing a lot of somatic work in my own life for the last bunch of years, and it's so key. Especially
Yeah,
like as a mental projector and as somebody who's just been trying to take it all in mentally, I
yeah,
have trouble connecting it back somatically, even having done a lot of somatic work. So I'm just really, it's cool that that's a part of it. That's the big thing that caught my eye.
yeah. Awesome. I'm glad that you already have some experience with that. Yeah, I can really see as a mental projector that does help ground you, doesn't it?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Hmm.
And also just
Yeah.
the last section you talked about your kind of take on a lot of Ra's stuff. I just really appreciate the approach that you have, and I've gone to a lot of source material in the last bunch of months, and um, just excited to hear some of your takes and the
Cool.
nuance, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments about how we do things here? The next part of our time together, we'll do some live demos. Okay, well, why don't we transition to that? Let me get your info in here, Jen. Kokomo. Sorry, I have that Beach Boys song in my head now. Different Kokomo. All right. Okay. Okay, Becca, what's up for you right now, Becca? Do you have like a particular question? And by the way, I'm just seeing these charts for the first time. So
Um, I mean, I don't have any particular, well, maybe I do. I've been learning a lot about my appetite and I've been playing around with it. And,
let's not go into that just because that's out of bounds for the course.
oh,
PHS
okay.
stuff. Yeah. But fair enough. Um, how about we look a little bit at your personality substructure? So, how long have you been in the experiment, Becca?
Since 2019.
Okay, so you've got good solid experience. Yeah. And do you feel like you've got a grip on this innocent motivation?
Kind of. I fight it a lot.
You fight it a lot. Uh-huh. Right. Um, by the way, you'll probably benefit from the recent podcast with Teresa because we talk a lot about innocence and desire and stuff like that. So this innocent motivation is really about being as an end in itself. You're not trying to get anywhere with anything, right? You're just having that experience for experience sake. You just do what you love, right? It's agendaless. Now, what I know is through transference, this is a mind that has created a lot of agendas and a lot of goals, right? Goals and agendas. Why? To really compensate, to find some worth, right? To prove yourself in some way. So it's always like there's this carrot that's dangled, and it's like, if I can achieve that, then I'll be worthy, right? So there's a link between that transference and your undefined ego there, right? So do you see how your mind is always looking for goals and agendas and I need to get somewhere, like rather than just being,
Mhm.
right? It's scheming,
Okay.
you know, it's going to be scheming. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I'm always looking for the next thing to learn, the next thing to get better at, to master.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what it is. When you transfer, you go to this path of learning and development and being driven and having goals and having agendas. And the underpinnings of that, right? One of the underpinnings is going to be, this is going to be the thing that makes me worthy, right? And if I can sell and market myself, all the better, right? I'm going to sell and market myself. I'm going to have goals for how I'm going to sell and market myself, right? And or your own sense of self-worth could be undermined when you take things personally. You could easily find yourself in power dynamics. Now, on one hand, this is a design that can be easily threatened and overwhelmed, intimidated, threatened, and overwhelmed, right? Now, I don't know how that plays out for you. That might look like you acquiescing, that might look like you just trying to protect yourself, or at times it could look like you getting embroiled in that power dynamic, right? And maybe fighting
Mhm.
back quite hard, particularly when you feel like your survival has been compromised. Hey, you're not letting me be me, or I feel like you're compromising my safety. And that's when you can really kind of puff up your chest and push back, you know? So I see all this happening. And really what you're designed to do is, you're here to be filtering for the hierarchical aspects of life, who's winning, who's losing, who's good at what, whether we're talking about um, the best restaurants, the best human design analyst, or who's winning in sports, or what's going on in politics. Notice all that without identifying with it. You're actually meant to be a reprieve from the power dynamics of the world. And that's very interesting because you're very attuned to the power dynamics of the world. So you give people that reprieve, right? You give them that break, you know? And yet you yourself, you understand those power dynamics because that's what you're seeing. You see that subtle balance there of you yourself, no agenda, which doesn't mean you can't get anywhere and accomplish anything. It doesn't mean you're not meant to produce something necessarily, right? But you have to, wherever you go, it has to come from, right, your response. So do you see there's a difference between kind of adhering to agendas and following a response? Because your whole life, your identity, right, is based on what you respond to. Your ability to love life or not is based on what you respond to. You're only going to love life if you allow yourself to behave as uniquely as you're designed to, right? To struggle for the things that bring you purpose, right? Life just won't, it just won't be appealing to you. You won't enjoy it. You're not going to be having fun if you don't come from your response and allow yourself to behave as uniquely as you're designed to behave. And what's going to get in the way of that are homogenizing agendas and goals, right? That are really just strategies to compensate when there's nothing to compensate for. So I just want to take a pause.
So I'm curious if I'm supposed to be living in the experience and I'm just how I am interpreting is I'm following my sacral to what is the next aligned step. So it wouldn't be, I think what you're saying is like if I'm using my mind to chase like the next achievement or the next learning, the next thing, um, I'm in transference. I guess like I'm trying to understand.
Your mind's always looking for how to switch gears to make something happen. I have an agenda to really skip steps. And because you just said something very interesting, you said it was almost like you were reminding yourself of something that you already knew. You said, oh, I'm here to just respond to the next step. Yes. That was really key what you just said. This is not the next step. This is your mind going toward, I need to make something happen. And I think I know the timeline. You know, it's agendas to make something happen, right? This is the interesting thing about channels that go between the sacral and the G are not particularly getting anywhere, are they? That's why these three are tantric. What is tantra? It's about being in the experience, not about getting anywhere. You're being in the pattern, right? Or you're just waiting for that pulse. You're moved by the pulse, or you're in this cycle of experience, right? These channels up here are expressing. They're not tantric, right? So you really need to surrender, right, to where people with the 3410, you've got the power to behave as yourself. And that there can be almost a defiance in that. These are the people who everyone else is zigging and you're zagging. You have your own behavior, your own heretical behavior, right? And one of the things that happens with a 5-2 is 5-2s get interfered with. They get interfered with probably more than anyone, right? And the reason why that is, so anywhere you've got a fifth line or a second line in your design, this is for anyone, right? Take a look at your chart. Anywhere you've got fifth lines or second lines, these are places you've been interfered with. Second lines, you're just naturally doing your thing. Let's say you've got, this gate of the creative, this creative self, gate 1, line 2. You're just naturally being creative. Then your parents come over and they say, oh, look at that. You're so good at this. We now want to give you classes. We now want to show this off to other parents. We now want to brag about you. We now have plans for what you should do with your talent. Meanwhile, that kid's just thinking, I was just having fun. I'm just being a natural. I'm just flowing over here. Leave me alone. Fifth line's the same thing. You stick out, right? You're pedestaled, right? Ra actually uses that example with 1.5. I'm pretty sure these are people who have a lot of creative potential, but they end up in some sort of dead end creative job. Like rather than being that just, incredible, let's say, acting talent, they kind of settle for the game show. I think that's his example, as a matter of fact. So the 5-2s, just you're so seen. And people have so many ideas about you. And you have to be careful. Any fifth line personality, including 5-1s, by the way, we have to be careful about drinking our own Kool-Aid, about what other people think about who we are. We do have an inherent gift, right? But then there's a lot of projections, which are, it's about them, not about us. It's about social conditioning, not us, right? The fifth line just reflects the Maya, what people think about the world, right? The fifth line, so you've got the fifth line in the sexual role gate. This is what people think about sexuality in relationship. It's Romeo and Juliet. You've had people fall in love with you that you didn't particularly care for, right? They thought you were the perfect woman with the 59.5, the femme fatale, right? So this is the world's projections about sexuality, right? What that's supposed to be, the poetry and the flowers and the unrequited love and all the things, right? So what I'm saying here is this is a design that has really been, a lot of ideas have been put upon you, right? And that's going to be a source of anxiety. right, with the undefined ajna. And if you buy those ideas, it's going to translate into strategies, which you're not designed for. Strategies for what? Strategies to achieve goals, right, which protect your future, by the way, and which give you a sense of self-worth that you can't quite hang on to internally. When really you got to wait for that response, which takes you in your own direction. And it looks like you being different. There's a conflict here in this design between societal expectations with your collective circuit and with your individual circuitry. Now, tribalism, forget it. That's a mystery to you. What does it mean to be fair and reciprocity and quid pro quo? And, wait, I was expected to do what in return? You don't know. I can see the recognition.
Yeah.
All that family stuff, whatever, that's confusing, and like, look, you're not meant to push and make sure you keep your word anyway. But when friends and family or your romantic partners, they have a certain idea of, well, what about me? And what's fair here? And that eludes you. That's okay. That's not your movie. Part of your movie is sort of figuring out how to fit into the world and be your own unique self. Right? And to really sort out the difference between all the things people have put upon you about how wonderful they think you are. And you are, but you're not wonderful the way they think you are.
Okay.
Is that a good stopping point?
Yeah,
You
that
have any
was.
questions?
I feel like I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. And then I feel this pressure, which is in my body. Like I feel like tension up here because I'm like trying to figure it out because I feel like I'm on the spot.
Yeah. You don't need to figure it out. Yeah. Yeah. These are not things that, human design reading really needs to be sat with and digested. And of course, in a live, setting, it's difficult to really see it clearly and let it all in. Teresa, if you have anything that you want to say, feel free.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and ask Becca where you're feeling that exactly, that pressure.
Um, on the upper right back, right under my neck.
Yeah. And are there any sensations that you'd want to describe that you're feeling there?
It's like a pressure to respond to what he's saying because it's I think it's my mind saying like or what I've been taught to do is like respond to someone talking. And
Mm-hmm.
so as he's talking, I'm feeling like I should be confirming or saying something in his response. Like when he was pausing, it felt really uncomfortable because I felt like I needed to maybe inject my affirmation of like what he's saying or that I understood.
Yeah. I'm just going to pause you right there. Why don't we just be with the feeling? Because you see how you're intellectualizing the feeling right now and trying to figure out what it means.
Mhm.
Yeah, so let's just be with the feeling together for a moment. So you're feeling this pressure in your upper back. And let's just tune into that together. Maybe even breathing into that feeling and just taking it as it's just data from your body. And there's no need to do anything with the feeling or figure out the feeling. It's just there. Maybe even tuning into what that feeling might need from you. Does it just need this presence? Does it need any touch? And no need to even say anything about it if you don't have anything to say. You can just be with it.
it definitely feels like some of the stuff from my inner child is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're just recognizing that inner child is coming forward. Maybe it wants to be witnessed in this experience, or maybe not. Maybe it just wants its presence to be known. Is the sensation still where it was, or has it moved at all?
It's kind of spread a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your body knows what to do with that sensation, right? We don't have to do anything. And even the fact that it's moving a little bit and spreading, it's just showing us that your body's doing something with it. It's allowing it to process. That doesn't mean it's necessarily going to go away, but it does know what to do with it. Your body's so intelligent. Is there anything that your inner child needs from you or from me in this moment?
I feel like she's being seen.
Mm.
So it's definitely, I felt my body like kind of like exhale
Oh, yeah.
just right now.
Yeah. Let's take that exhale together. Yeah. Just being with that sensation of feeling seen in this moment. So did everybody feel the energy kind of ground down? Like initially when Becca started talking, it was very, it felt almost uppity, right? It's like searching for an answer or a response or something to make sense of it. And now all of us can kind of feel that energy start to just ground down. That was really great, Becca. And thanks for being so vulnerable and like sharing everything that was coming up for you in that moment. I know that can be hard to be so honest. And that was really cool to witness in you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for participating, Becca, being on the spot. I mean, being seen, I can see that this chart would like that. We often have a wound where we distract or transfer. When I go from my survival view to wanting or need, I can see that part of my wounding is feeling like no one's meeting my needs. I got to do that. I got to take care of that. And so the wounding for power to the personal would be, what about me? Does anyone see me? Does anyone see me? Am I personally being accounted for? You know, and that can connect to the unworthy stories and all the things. You have a really, I find it fascinating when I meet someone who's really, you're the opposite of me in terms of my chart is extremely somatically sensitive because I'm a touch cognition and other things, but I'm also extremely intellectual. And your chart is refreshingly not intellectual at all. It's not a conceptual chart, right? And so one of the things is there's an invitation here when the time is right to let go of concept. It's not just you're completely open ajna. It's other stuff I can see and hear tells me that's going to be, that's going to be a source of anxiety. Why can't I pin things down? But to finally just let that go. It's just not a mental person, you know? You're intuitive and instinctive and energetic, driven, you know, somatically driven, not mentally driven, as we were talking about up here, right? Driven from your body, you know, this is a very spontaneous design, existential, you know, You're able to really, for me as an emotional triple split, when I need to make a decision, a change in my life, I can only go, if I'm going north, I can only go northwest or northeast. You can go from north to south or north to east. This is a design that can radically pivot, change their direction, go a different way. That's in you. And to do it quickly, right? And there's no mental consideration at all. Your design actually has a real objectivity from the mind, right? It's not the case with Teresa and I. We're in the murky emotional world that's entangled with the mind. So that's not your predicament. It looks like a fun car to drive, is what I'm trying to say. I'd love to try it out.
It gets me in a lot of trouble or arguments.
We can all say that. It's all depends on how you're situated in the car, right? Are you in the back seat, right? Relaxed or not?
Yeah.
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 Well, thanks, Becca. Jen, I think we'll take a quick look at your chart if you're up for it. Are you with us? There you are.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would extend the same thing. Do you have a particular question, or do you just want me to kind of start somewhere?
I do not have a particular question, and I'd love you to start wherever you feel drawn.
Okay. So, let's see here. Well, Jen has what's called we're going to learn about this in semester 1. Because her top open center is an awareness center, she has what's called a prime issue, right? So there's 2 types of issues that really underpin the not self. They're the deepest roots of the not self. One's called an epsilon issue, and that's an issue in which everything is framed as, I have a problem. There's something wrong with me. Now, when you have a prime issue, as Ra did, and as I do, or Jen, it's more like there's something wrong with the world, other people in the world and the environment, right? It's externalized. And so awareness centers are made up of fear gates, right? So that's really where there's fear there with someone that's got a prime issue. They're really filtering for, am I safe? Am I safe in the world? Am I safe with you? Am I safe with these other people? Right? Is it safe to be myself? So her differentiation journey partly has to do with not overcoming, first and foremost, self-worth issues, although everyone can have them to a degree. But first and foremost, it's not that. It's, well, is it safe for me to be myself? Will other people accept me? Would other people love me if I'm as strange as I can be? Because Jen, unlike Becca, who has a tension between societal norms and her individuality, how she needs to be empowered for herself, selfishly, right? Jen has got a different issue, and it is more with familial, tribal sort of obligations. Is it safe, to be myself in the tribe, with my parents, my family, my siblings, whatever that looks like for Jen, right? Because at some point, certainly, she would have really impacted them with her moods, with how she communicates, and it can really there can be a lot of pent up anger there, maybe feeling suppressed. And it is a design that on the shadow side of things could be codependent, it could lean. You're leaning on family and leaning on the tribe, leaning on whoever you're leaning on can make it harder and harder to be yourself. The future tribalism is a tribe in which we need nothing from each other. Therefore, we can all show up as the individuals that we are, free. Hey, I'm going to be me, you be you. Doesn't matter. I don't need anything from you. I'm free in that sense. That can be difficult. That's a journey for the 1-3. There's a developmental journey where they have to learn to stand on their own 2 feet. I'm not saying this is the case, but it's often the case with 1-3s that they have a benefactor, right? They're leaning on the spouse or the parents or something because there's an insecurity there, right? Now, Jen would try to resolve that insecurity. The first place her mind is going to go is, right, do I know how to fix it? Certainly. I want to fix things and I want to nail it down. Certainly. I feel obliged. I feel guilty. I want to help, you know, I'm going to take responsibility here. Right. So that's the thing is, you know, through Jen's lens, the world is unsafe. And if you examine, if you really take it apart, well, why is it really unsafe? It's because of the themes of the ajna. It's, well, I find it scary that somehow we've got all these different points of view, these different philosophies. What's real? What's true? Anything seems possible. That's a bit unnerving. She wants to nail it down, you know, and it's just not the world that she gets to. That's not her filter. That's not her design. I'll just take a pause here, Jen. Are you tracking?
Oh, it's too accurate.
Would you like me to be less accurate for the remainder?
No.
It's a heck of a thing to have a prime issue. You know, prime issue is not just, am I safe to be myself with other people? Am I safe with you? I think there might be a problem with you. I don't know if I'm safe with the world. Prime issue people would have a real strong opinion, probably, about the pandemic.
Oh.
There you go. That's really going to trigger the prime person. You know, they weren't just neutral about all that. Oh, whatever. No, no, no. They were very adamant on one side or the other about what we need to be doing or don't need to be doing. Again, is the world safe? This is the underpinning of your psychology, the deepest roots. The other aspect of the prime issue, which is interesting because awareness centers are nodal. It's not just where you're at, it's where you're going. So this is a mind that says, almost as if she had an undefined G, where am I going? Am I doing the right things to get there? And again, one thing she's going to say is, well, I'm going to be a fixer. Jen really has the intelligence to know what will change without intervention. That's her true intelligence with hope motivation and underscored by possibilities view. Jen can see the long shot possibility. She can see the long shot possibility and she can know through surrender, which is hopefully a concept that she's warmed up to as a quad right? She can know through surrender, I don't need to get involved. I don't need to meddle. If I come from this place of feeling guilty, like I've got to help out in some way, I'm meddlesome. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I know you know it as well as I know it. So where am I going? Am I doing the right things to get there? The differentiation journey means let go of that. I don't need to know. You know, it's got to be emergent. Part of where you can practice this is in your readings. We'll fill up your toolbox. Jen's already enrolled. We fill up your toolbox, and then it's getting practice, maybe with a friend that you feel comfortable with and safe with, and you just see what comes out. And you build that muscle, and that builds your ability to trust rather than going into the coaching conversation thinking you need to fix them. No, I am the guy that needs to fix them. I am the guilt motivation 5-1, 8/5 lines, the conditioner. I am fixing what's broken. You are not here to do that. You're here to offer hope. And you know what? When you're coming from the right place, you get the opposite. You give people hope. Hope to what? Hope that they can have their problem fixed. You just don't directly access the fixing, but you lay the foundations for them to have the hope that their problem can be fixed when you're aligned. You give them possibility, space in that way. My greatest teacher, Kamud Kabir, innocence motivation, possibilities view. here I am, Mr. I'm going to fix things. Right. And then what really healed me was a container in which that's not the approach. So her ability to serve me had everything to do with hands off, not going to fix this guy. I'm giving him the medicine of being. And so you're giving people that medicine of hope and of uncertainty. And let me tell you, as a person with 3 parts left, it is really beautiful to just be complimented by someone that is not here to be certain, not here to fix something. You know, we need each other in that way. So there you go. That's what comes through now.
Yeah, it's so accurate. And I can reflect back on parts of my life, big parts of my life, because I didn't bump into human design until I was in my early 40s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That, I mean, I spent, yeah, most of it trying to fix everything around me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been really freeing the last few years to let go of that. I still fall into it, especially as a parent. There's a lot of tension between the, just being an individual and then being tribal and
Yeah.
having
Right.
teenagers.
It's, yeah.
So that comes up a lot. And whereas it's interesting because I can witness myself now being like, I've done what I can do. And now I just have to see where it goes and recognizing that. And then it's other people coming in. Well, did you do this? And did you try this? And have you looked at that? And have you?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I have to put up a very strong boundary a lot around it and say, yeah, I've done what I can, but they see that more in their mind can be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, holding that boundary and saying, you know what, I'm going to wait and see what happens now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. And if you're not okay with it, that's fine. But I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And that's good because, your tendency would be to fix the other person or fix the world. So to let them be there and also say, I've got my boundaries. And you want to be careful about who's pulling you, right, from hope to guilt.
Yeah.
And just communicate, that's not me.
Yeah. And the person who pulls me the most is also hope, motivation, and always in guilt transference.
Yeah. Not surprising. Not surprising.
And I do want to shake them sometimes and say, you're also not supposed to be trying to fix all this, but
yeah.
I'm not here to fix them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. That would be the orientation with the prime issue. Yeah. But you have a problem. I'm going to fix your fixing.
Yeah.
It just gets real meta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, does anyone have any other questions about our approach? I do believe that we're going to do at least one more open house, right, Teresa? We talked about that. It'll probably just be more demos and just opportunities to feel out our vibe and ask some questions. But I think this is what we wanted to cover for today, but happy to answer any final questions anyone might have. Anything at all?
Are you guys feeling really confident on the times for semester 1 for the classes?
Yes. I mean, it's always just funny to ask us about time and to ask if we're confident about time in general. No, we're not really confident about time. Generally speaking, yeah, kind of a sore subject, but at this point, yes. I mean, all signs point to that being the right timing for this. I mean, we've already pushed it back about a month. And this, yeah. So you should be able to plan on September 29th as a start date. Yeah.
And then pretty solid in the 10 a.m. Pacific time, the actual times of the sessions you guys have planned right now?
Yeah, it was at 10 a.m. I think that sounds correct. I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
I think
appreciate
that'll
it.
be
I
right.
can tell you guys are in a whole lot of evolution getting the next cohort ready. So I just appreciate all the information and transparency.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and of course, over the fall, times will shift.
Totally.
But yeah, yep, good question. Yeah, anyone else have a question about logistics or anything like that? Content? Oh, thanks, Selene. That's sweet. Much appreciated. Yeah, anything else? I mean, we're available. You know, you all know how to reach us in the DMs, in email. We're going to share this video, I think, on the course webpage and on YouTube. So you can go back and rewatch if you'd like. And again, we'll keep you posted about future open houses. If you have emailed, as I know you have, Matt, among others, we're going to get back to you and we'll set up some interviews. Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then thank you for joining today. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Bye for now.